The time is just gone 9:23 a.m. as we continue with the broadcast, the second half of the show this morning. Now, shortly, we'll be joined by UK-based author and journalist Dr. Yvonne Ridley out of Scotland. And while the world has expressed its support for Israel, while they have bought into the Israeli narrative, we've seen the level of military support given by the United States of America. Now, the UK is also committing support. We've seen the European Union. We've seen laws in the European countries banning Palestinian symbols, Palestinian flags. We've seen criminalization of the support of people of Palestine. The question is, what is the Muslim world doing? We've heard about Egypt, who said that they had warned Israel prior to the Hamas attack in southern Israel. We've seen statements come through from the likes of Qatar, from Saudi Arabia. We've even seen the Turkish President Erdogan talking about telling Hamas that they need to release the hostages. And with all of this actually playing out, the powerhouse in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, we know the strong normalization move just prior to these events taking place. Now, all of this to put into perspective, into context, we go across now to be joined by Dr. Yvonne Ridley. Dr. Yvonne Ridley, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Walaikum salam and Jummah Mubarak to all of your viewers and listeners.
Yes, obviously, we are talking through very, very trying times, very, very difficult times, unprecedented times. A week ago, we would not have expected and we would not have witnessed what we are seeing today. But we've seen how the situation has built over a period of time, the global political dynamics that have been playing out, the Israeli narrative, the West, its support for Israel, and also at the same time, a Muslim world that is in a dilemma and to an extent impotent and don't know what to do and where to turn.
Yes, these are unprecedented times. I mean, as we're talking now, 1.1 million Palestinians in Gaza have been told to get the hell out of Gaza City and northern Gaza in the next 24 hours. Such a movement of people is impossible. Hamas, which of course is the ruling authority in Gaza, has told its people, stay put. The Israelis are saying, move or we're going to bomb. And what we are witnessing is a genocide, a threat of genocide, and that is a war crime. Israel at the moment has the sympathy of the world, and they are squandering all of that goodwill on this insanity. And a lot of Western leaders are now in the region, including Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, and he must use all the authority he has in his power to rein in this out of control Israeli army. We saw this sort of blind rage, and we can understand where it comes from, but we saw this sort of blind rage from the American people in after the horrific events of 9/11. And that led to a 20-year war, which saw the humiliating defeat of America. The same blind rage to lash out and to get revenge is in Israel. And I would appeal to Israel's friends to rein back, to pull back, and start talking peace, because you will achieve nothing with the barrel of a gun. You can't achieve peace with the barrel of a gun. We are on the edge of an abyss at the moment, which has largely been created by the Western uh, attitude of ignoring the plight of the Palestinians. The last peace talks, the Abraham Accords, didn't even involve the Palestinians.
Yes.
Untenable as it may seem, the powers that be must sit down at the table with Hamas and open peace talks.
Yvonne, you made mention in your article, you speak about the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has actually vowed to change the political landscape of the
He's
Middle East. And
he's
at the same time, you say that Hamas has ripped open a Pandora box which will change the shape of the Middle East for years to come.
oh, absolutely. What we are witnessing now, um, the Palestinian people are at a crossroads where they are facing Armageddon or salvation. And it's as black and white as that. You spoke about Benjamin Netanyahu. He is finished as a prime minister, as a leader of Israel. Yesterday, I was reading the Jerusalem Post, which is slightly right wing in its leanings, and it had held a poll, an extensive poll among its people, and 4 out of 5 Israelis blame Netanyahu for the situation we are in today. He, according to Egypt, he was given the intelligence 10 days ago that this audacious attack by Hamas was going to happen, and he chose to ignore it. We've now seen the Israelis move from a hubris to humility. They have been humbled by this war machine in Gaza, a very crude but effective war machine, because Hamas does not have the billions of dollars worth of weapons that Israel's got. Israel has the 4th most powerful army in the world, and it is going to use its weapons right now on women and children unless it is pulled back from this insane demand to move 1.1 million people overnight. And more than 50% of the population in Gaza is very, very young. The majority are children. And this is a genocidal move. But I do think that Netanyahu is finished. There is one very unlikely quarter, in my view, that can bring some salvation and some hope into this whole picture. And that rests with the volatile crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, who is due to visit London any week now, and perhaps following on with an American visit. It's not quite on the level of a state visit, but it is an official visit. A red carpet will be laid out for the prince, who has now ended all normalization talks with Israel. That was the golden egg in the Abraham Accords, and that has now been smashed by Netanyahu. So this is very, very significant. And as I say, in a couple of weeks' time, I don't think Netanyahu will be in a job, which makes him today the most dangerous man in the world, a man with nothing to lose.
Yes.
The Palestinians have very little to lose either.
Yvonne, you speak about the Saudi prince and the normalization deal. And you also make mention that losing the normalization deal with the Saudis will send tremors through the corridors of power in the Zionist state. And you and I have discussed this in the past with previous normalization deals with the likes of Morocco and the likes of Sudan and Bahrain and all of them that have normalized deals, the UAE as well. And this was going to be the big prize for Israel to normalize with the powerhouse in the Middle East, which is Saudi Arabia. Now we know militarily Saudi Arabia may not be in a position to assist, like we see the United States, like we see the UK committing military aid to Israel. So Saudi Arabia may not be in a position, but diplomatically, what are some of the considerations, and also what are some of the options that Saudi Arabia could utilize as leverage?
Well, we know that Bin Salman, or MBS as he's called, has been spending billions on sports washing and soft power in the West. And this is all with good reason. He's trying to rehabilitate his image after the horrific murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And America, the CIA, said that MBS was the architect behind that murder. They put the horrific episode right at his door. And US President Joe Biden, supposedly the most powerful man in the world, turned round and said, I will turn Saudi into a pariah state. Yet less than a year ago, we saw him fly into Jeddah, belly dancing on the red carpet in front of MBS, fist bumping the crown prince. And Bin Salman was standing there looking round at all his courtiers as if to say, look, here he is, the most powerful man in the world, groveling at my feet. And Joe Biden had two requests. One was to fix the oil prices, to stop what is happening today with energy. And the other was to try and raise the issue of human rights. He got slapped down by the Crown Prince. It was, make no mistake, a global humiliation. And then the Crown Prince flew off and was rubbing shoulders with Vladimir Putin and with President Xi in China. And he wanted the West to see, these are my new friends. I will pick my friends and I will mix and do what I want to do. And this is the start that we're seeing of a change of shifting power between the East and the West. So it's interesting that, Israel desperately needed to get the Saudis on board. And Netanyahu has shredded that. He's killed the goose that was going to lay the golden egg by normalization with Saudi. So, there may be 500,000 troops massing on the border with Gaza now. I don't know the exact figures, but make no mistake, this we're seeing the final days of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yvonne, you speak also in your article of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed, the bromance that MBS and MBZ had enjoyed, and you speak about the cracks in this relationship between the two. And At the same time, you make mention that bin Zayed has sided openly with Israel in his response to the Hamas attack. How relevant, how important is this?
Well, when the Crown Prince of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, through his support with Israel, this was hugely significant until his rival, the Crown Prince of Saudi, tore up the work that was done on normalization and said, "I stand with the Palestinian people." He didn't go as far as saying that he stood with Hamas. In fact, he phoned Mahmoud Abbas and said to the Palestinian Authority leader, "I stand with the Palestinian people." But the ending of this bromance is again hugely significant for Palestinians, and we'll see in coming days this rivalry between the two. I think will come to play. It's all very nuanced and complicated, and most Western journalists just walk away. They don't want to get embroiled in the nitty gritty of Middle East politics. But it's important that we do, so that we can get a feel of what is happening, what is about to happen. Netanyahu at the moment is promoting himself as the strong man. He, in fact, is very weak. He doesn't even have the support of 4 out of 5 Israelis. So when you put all of this context into the mix, this is why world leaders are flying out to Israel. This is why Britain is sending a naval force into the Mediterranean. Britain, that can barely defend itself, is now being sucked in to what could potentially be a war to end all wars, because, we've got the Iranian leader at the moment who is also in the region. He's talking to Hamas, Hezbollah. He's in Lebanon, Syria. He's right around that Shia crescent. And the potential is absolutely frightening at the moment. And the UN has proved itself to be a toothless organization. These, as I say, we're right at the abyss where the world's most dangerous man, Benjamin Netanyahu, is making genocidal threats to the Palestinian people. But there are some very powerful actors in the region, and I think that they'll be ready to slap down the Israelis if it means appeasing the Saudi crown prince. He has the power at the moment to shake off his awful image and be a force for good.
Yvonne, just your thoughts and what will this actually do for MBS and his standing in the Muslim world? Now, we know the Arab League, they've met, but at this point in time, we've seen somewhat I would say mild and lukewarm statements come through from the Arab world and the sentiment that they've expressed in terms of what is playing out in Gaza, and the expectation is for them to adopt a harder line. And you know, where would this actually place a person like MBS and how he is seen and viewed in the Arab world and the Muslim world in general?
Well, depending which way he goes, and he is unpredictable, he is volatile, he is petulant, but he is his own man. The crown prince could well emerge out of this covered in glory as a peacemaker. The peace in the Middle East is something that has eluded Arab leaders. Most of them have been very half-hearted in their attitude towards peace in the Middle East. We have the King of Jordan at the moment hosting Joe Biden's man, Antony Blinken. But I would imagine that there are very strong talks going on at the moment in the back channels between Blinken's people and the Crown Prince in Riyadh. And I think that we'll see Blinken going to MBS and trying to talk with him. He is making it very clear at the moment, and of course things could change, and I'd be incredibly disappointed if they do, but he could continue this very strong stance. I am with the Palestinian people. This may have an effect on other Arab leaders. We have heard that Egypt warned Mossad, the intelligence agency in Israel, that Hamas was about to launch a spectacular. And what I take away from that is the betrayal and the treachery of the Sisi regime in Egypt, working hand in glove with Israeli intelligence against the Palestinian people. And so there are going to be a lot of winners and losers in this whole game. And it is a political game. It's a deadly political game with the lives of 2 million Palestinians hanging in the balance. And it must be so awful for the Palestinians. They are being played like pieces in a grand chess game, and they have no say in their future at the moment.
Yes.
It's so sad.
Yvonne, just finally, we know Russia and China seem to be pretty quiet on this particular matter, and I just needed your thoughts. And also another player, Erdogan. We're talking of Turkey, because we know Turkey has been pretty influential in the Muslim world in general. But again, we don't see that boldness coming out of Turkey, out of Erdogan, as he has expressed in the past, and also in looking at him and his association with China and with Russia. You spoke about MBS also reaching out to Russia and China. So where does this actually fit in on a global political landscape?
That's a great question, because ordinary Muslims around the world look at Recep Tayyip Erdogan as the unofficial emir of the concept of a one ummah, and they look towards him for guidance. And his silence is deafening. I would urge him to come out and show his support. He is a major regional power broker, someone who can talk to Russia and China and get their attention. So yes, you're right. You know, his at the moment he's keeping his powder dry. But I know that ordinary Muslims around the world, as they gather as they gather for Friday prayers today, they will be saying, "What is Erdogan doing?" And I'm sure that he's not the sort of leader who remains silent for long, not when it comes to the plight of Muslims and Palestine. But he is playing his own game as well. And he is under tremendous pressure in his own country. Russia, obviously embroiled in this war with Ukraine, seems to have the support of China. China is also silent at the moment. And China is, whether people like it or not, the emerging superpower. part of the BRICS movement of Brazil, Russia, South Africa, India. These are all major players, and BRICS, which is probably the Southern Hemisphere's equivalent to the G7, it now has, for the first time ever, a better, larger performing economy than the G7 countries. The whole political shape of the world is changing. And this tiny little piece of land being clung onto by more than 2 million Palestinians could be the fuse to blow up these tectonic plates of power.
Well, Yvonne, we're going to have to leave it at that. Really, as always, an absolute pleasure engaging with you on these matters, and your unpacking of events and also your analysis is always welcome right here on Salam Media. It just adds so much value to the type of discussions that we have, and we wish you all the best. Have yourself a wonderful Jummah as well, and let's continue making dua for our brothers and sisters in
Yes,
Palestine.
I was going to say we must all pray for Gaza.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you.
Dr. Yvonne Ridley joining us out of Scotland this morning. And with that, we're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by Mufti Abdullah Dokrat.